Welcome along to Off the Brawl and Off the Ball. We're going to look ahead to a cracking weekend of boxing. Jono Carroll looks to become the next world champion from Ireland. Katie Taylor can add to her 2 world titles on the same card in Philadelphia. Michael Conlan's in New York for a St. Patrick's Day showdown once again. Also Irish interest in Boston. Spike O'Sullivan and Niall Kennedy in action. Small matter of Errol Spence against Mikey Garcia in Texas. That's in the early hours of Sunday morning. So much to get through. Joined in studio by former world middleweight champion Andy Lee and Simon Maguire as always. Lads, what are you really looking forward to this weekend?
Spence Garcia.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's the best fight of the weekend, and it'll really kind of shape the welterweight division for the next year. And of course I'm looking forward to all the Irish action as well, but just in terms of not a pick 'em fight, but I think the Spence Garcia one is a very intriguing bout, and it'll set us up nicely for the rest of the year.
Yeah, it's something kind of special as well, Andy, about St. Patrick's weekend, and I think the Americans have copped on that if you stack your cards with Irish fighters, you're going to get crowds.
You're going to sell as well, especially on the East Coast.
Yeah.
As we're seeing with these fights this weekend. But yeah, I would agree that the Spence Garcia fight it's one of the fights of the year, potentially. And in terms of both guys' records and their ability, it is one of the fights of the year in the making, so... But of the Irish action, I would like the real interesting fight is Jono Carroll, isn't it?
Yeah.
How is he going to handle Tevin Farmer? What's he going to do? How's he going to try and beat him? What can he do to beat him? And what kind of tactics can he employ? What pressure can he apply? And that's what you'd have to see him doing, wouldn't you? You'd have to see him like sustained heavy pressure and hope that Farmer cracks.
Yep. And obviously, Jono Carroll, Tevin Farmer is the main event in Philadelphia. People might be wondering, where's Ronan Mullen? He's in Philadelphia. We're going to get him in a minute. But Simon, I know yourself and Ronan spoke to Jono Carroll last week ahead of this fight as he bids to become the IBF Super Featherweight World Champion, taking on Tevin Farmer. And you spoke to him, and he's pretty confident that he's going to bring the belt home. Let's have a listen.
Camp has been great. Everything's spot on. I can't really complain, Just ready to rumble now.
Good stuff. And I know you relocated to Marbella for training purposes and living purposes as well. Has your camp been pretty standard, or have you changed things up given that it's a world title fight?
Yeah, we changed stuff up a lot, Last time everything didn't go too smooth with myself. It was the camp was just, it wasn't correct, But after speaking to the team, MTK Global made sure we had the best of sparring partners this time. We had the best nutritionists, literally the best of everything, to make this opportunity and dream a reality. So for me, it's like it was a totally different camp. I've actually never had a camp like this. Last time I was doing a lot more running than this time. This one I'm doing a lot more strength and fast type of work. So yeah, we've changed things up an awful lot.
Good stuff. We might get into the specifics around the fight itself because it's an interesting clash and stuff, but I might just bring it back to 2014, Jono, when you sort of first burst onto the Irish boxing scene on that Macklin undercard, and you'd been living in Australia to that point. Can you just tell me a bit about what you were doing over there? I think you had a couple of pro fights there first, didn't you?
Yeah, well, when I was in Australia, actually, I had my first professional fight. I was working in KFC, believe it or not, my first time. I had to go in the next day. My hands were killing me even just walking the next day, trying to take the burgers out and everything, them little tongs. But I was doing everything I could over there basically just to get an income. I was doing painting, I was doing scaffolding, and some of the jobs was hard, so it was kind of difficult to get to the gym. So it was kind of I was getting to the gym when I could. So in the space of 2 years, I only had 2 professional fights. It wasn't great, But at the same time, that's where I went pro, and I wouldn't change it for the world. I then came home from my sister's wedding, and I was playing boxing over there. I wasn't really taking the boxing scene so serious. I just done it because I enjoyed it, I wasn't training the way I kind of do now. I wasn't taking it as serious as a career as I do now. And then when I come back, I got on that Matthew Macklin bill in the 3 Arena, and it was just lift off from there. It was crazy. Everything just kind of slotted into place. It was madness how my career has all unfolded.
Yeah, it is an interesting path, quite a unique one. How did that specific opportunity come about, the one with Garrity on the Macklin bill?
Basically, I just went to the gym. I was in the gym. I went to Pascal Collins' gym to spar Stephen Ormond, and my dad just basically said, "Do you want to come up and spar Stephen? He's really good. He's a European champion, and so on, so on." So I knew I'd learn a lot of experience just being in sparring him. So my dad just brought me up there. So I just had one spar, and then I asked could I come back, and he said, "Yeah, of course, no problem. Anytime you want to spar," because Stephen was training for Terry Flanagan at the time. So it was good to have me as a southpaw sparring partner. So I just went back then, and I was in there to spar maybe 2 weeks, and then I suppose someone needed a opponent for Declan Garrity on that bill. So Declan was already with MTK, so I was basically brought in as someone to be beaten, overlooked almost. And I went in and I showed up. I made sure I dug deep and I trained really hard for that fight. I knew that was going to be a big opportunity because at the time Declan was a very big name, very big amateur background, so on. So I knew I needed to be on the ball that night, and well, I was, and I came out victorious there. Got a massive opportunity then on prize fire, which was only I think 3 weeks or 4 weeks later, and I went on and won that. You know what I mean? It was crazy. I was a really big underdog, 14-1, I think I was underdog to win that. Yeah. So it just kind of escalated, It was crazy. And here I am today.
On the Garrity thing, a couple of interesting points you made there, that you were brought in as the opponent, and you also mentioned that you were playing boxing, and when you got to Ireland, you were really committed to it. Was that Garrity fight the one that proved to you that boxing's something you could pursue when you knocked off a top talent like that you knew you could establish yourself at the top level?
Yes, well, see, it all happened so fast. It was so much. I knew what I was in for fighting Declan, so it was more or less I had to give it all or I was going to get hurt. So I just, for that camp, I think I only had about 5 weeks or maybe 6 weeks for that camp, and I just trained. In Australia, I never jogged because I absolutely despise jogging, hate it. So for the Declan Garrity fight, I started running, and once I started running, I was like, no, I'm going to do this. And every time I was running, I was just going over my head. I was going to put myself through torture for these next few weeks, and I'm not going down as an opponent, you know what I mean? I'm not going to be looked at as just an opponent. So I shocked a lot of people that night, and I done an interview just before the fight, and I said I want people like Eddie here, and I want people like these big promoters, and people like MDK seeing me and wanting me in their stable. So for me, it was like I done that night. I kind of shocked a lot of people, even giving him a hard fight in the first place. Never mind coming out victorious and then going on to fight in prize fighter, you know what I mean? It was like every time a big opportunity come up, I just took it with both hands and I just dug deep. It was more or less after prize fighter when I sat back and I was thinking, oh my God, I can actually make a career out of this. It wasn't until prize fighter at that moment that a lot of people took notice, and that's when I think I almost believed in myself. Then I was like, wow, I got talent. But I don't really like the word talent. I more prefer hard work because I worked extremely hard in a couple of weeks all leading up to all these fights. So I think it was more or less I had a big heart and I worked really hard. And you don't get anything in life unless you work hard for it, So I done that exact thing and I came out victorious.
Yeah, and prize fighter, we've spoken to a few different people about it. I know Luke Keeler was involved and we spoke to him, and Anthony Crolla as well. But can you just describe what that's like? I know you fought a lot of experienced people on that card, and Stephen Foster and Gary Buckland. Does it feel like you crammed like a year's worth of experience into one night fighting these sort of wily veterans, and you probably picked up a lot that night, did you?
Yeah, I picked up an awful lot, especially off Gary Buckland, because he was hitting me and doing a lot of dirty tricks that in the pro game that I've never seen in the amateurs. So that was a bit of a shock to me, So after that, I made sure I was doing it to other people then. So you learn quick on the job. When it gets done to you, it sticks in your mind, you know what I mean? So, yeah, I did gain a lot of experience, but more so I built a lot of confidence off those wins because, like, Stephen Foster was a European champion. Gary Buckland was a British champion. So if I'm beating the likes of them in, my 4th and 5th fight, then I knew I could have made a good career out of this. But for me, I didn't understand what tools and like talent I really had deep down until I worked hard. And when I kind of beat them, it was more like a confidence boost. I was like, I can actually do something here, I wasn't just playing boxing, as I said.
Jono, just in terms of the dirty tricks you're talking about, can you elaborate a little bit on that?
Yeah, there was loads of little dirty tricks he was doing. He was hitting and holding. There was one he grabs the side of my arm and like he stepped out and like half spun me, but so he threw me off balance, and as he done that, he hit me with a little rabbit punch in the solar plex. It was really like, I just wasn't expecting it, you know. There's so many dirty tricks to the program, it's actually unbelievable. I think he punched me in the hip once or twice as well, which looked like body shots, you know, but looked like he was trying to make it into a body shot, but he caught me in the hip. There's loads of them, mate. Punching in the shoulders.
Did you get a dead hip from that, or did it slow you down at all? Or?
Yeah, of course, but like the 3 trees, it didn't. The little rabbit punching in the solar plex, that was a killer. I was not expecting that, but he kind of, when he grabbed my arm, he almost hyperextended my elbow. So he pulled my elbow, so I was more focused on my arm. And as he done that, then he gave me the little body shot, you know, right in the solar plex. So little small tricks like that, they can, in a 12-round fight, I think it means it will take a toll a lot longer, you know what I mean? In the later rounds, that's when it'll really take a toll on you. But lucky enough for me, it was only 3 trees that night, so.
And obviously you're back with Matchroom now, and the first major fight on that deal was with Frenois, which you've already touched on. Final eliminator, a lot of pressure. I think the consensus was you maybe slightly underperformed, didn't do yourself justice. Jono, what are your thoughts on that fight now, looking back?
The same thing, looking back, things happen for a reason in life. I'm a fond believer in law of attraction, and I just think the universe gave me a little bee sting to wake me up to not overlook Farmer then, you know. So, like I said, the more experienced fighters you fight and the later them rounds go on, the more their experience show, and Farmer showed that, you know what I mean? I was playing with him at the very start, and I was thinking this is handy enough. He was very strong. I even felt that very early. He was very strong, but I hurt him, and I actually rocked him in like this 3rd or the 4th, I'm not sure. But at that stage, then I was like, I can hurt him. So I started loading up, and I veered off the game plan totally, and I just came forward trying to throw big shit with shots, and then I started getting hit with silly shots that I shouldn't have got hit with. And I just became a little bit frustrated, and I didn't really listen to the corner, I didn't listen to the team, and that was my own fault. So for me, I'm delighted it happened. Things happen for a reason in life, and I'm thankful that fight happened, because it showed me I can't just walk through anyone at world level, you know. Yeah. He wasn't ranked really high for no reason, you know. So it's by far the best thing that ever happened to me in my career. That fight showed me an awful lot about myself, and it's prepared me 110% for this fight, because now I'm not taking this fight for like, I'm not looking past Farmer. I was looking past Farmer a little bit, and that was my problem. So now, before I was like, I'm going to stop Farmer, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. Not believing in my own hype, but I was more or less convincing myself I was going to do it. And because I am a firm believer, you speak things and put it out there in the universe, and it does come back to you. But at the same time, I was just thinking it was going to be a little bit easier than what it actually was. And because we hadn't got too much footage on Frenois, I was like, I just wasn't worried about him. The fight I did see of him was all 3-4 years previous, and I was just like, I only watched him 2 or 3 times, and I kind of looked past him a little bit, you know. So it was just a beast thing. It woke me up, and I'm thankful that happened, to be honest.
Just looking ahead to the Farmer fight, how much of a challenge is it taking on somebody as elusive as him?
It's not that much of a challenge at all. Declan Garrity was supposed to be a real elusive fighter as well, and I took him on after being out of the ring for 2 years and then having 2 fights in another 2 years. So 2 fights basically in 4 years, and he was bigged up, and he was basically a very elusive fighter, and so on and so on. And I took that on short notice. So for me, it's like it's all about testing myself. I don't really care too much for the opponent. I don't see what the magic that people think Farmer has. He's not great. He's very good for 4 rounds, 5 rounds. He's very fast, very slick. But no one even punches to his body. Everyone's punching to his head and missing big, huge swings to his head. The only people he's good, like looks really classy against, is people who throw punches to his head and who throw hooks or big swings, because he's elusive. So he just ducks and slides under them and spins people out. But I had a fella from Freddie Roach's gym over here, and he was the exact same. Toka, his name was Toka Khan. He's a very, very good fighter, but he does all the same type of things. But we have a very strict game plan, and we know what we need to do to win this fight.
Yeah, and
so it's not big. It's not a big. It's not a big ask. Like, obviously, it's a big ask for me because he's a world champion. He's defended it a few times. And he's a great fighter. But for me, it's like I've been an underdog before, and I've stepped up to the plate plenty of times. So I'm all about testing myself. So I don't mind. I love these type of challenges. You know.
Yeah. I think it's a fight people in the boxing world have been looking forward to, because there's been a bit of hype around it even before it was signed. And is there genuine need there, Jono? Have you interacted with him much, or is it just kind of more the hype side of things?
No, I've slagged him a few times. He's slagged me a few times. We genuinely don't like each other, but I was surprised when I met him face to face how disrespectful he was. I didn't think he was actually that disrespectful, because I'm more or less, I'm a showman, you know what I mean? Yeah. I like to put on a performance and have a laugh and have a buzz, but I'm like a real friendly, with the character. I more or less like to have fun and have a laugh more than anything. I don't really be disrespectful, but when I was there, he was disrespectful, and he was saying some disrespectful things, and I was like, is this fella for real? You know what I mean? Like, I know I don't really be disrespectful when I'm mixing and annoying people, but because he was straight away, I put my hand out. My dad used to always say, if someone puts his hand out to you, you shake a man's hand, you know? So straight away, I was like, what up, Kevin? Something like that. I said to him, messing. And just being just jokeable kind of. And he was like, oh man, because you're here on your own today, we're going to take it easy on you. And he put his hand out to shake my hand. So I was like, all right, put my hand out. And he backhanded my hand down and slapped my hand away, but after putting his hand out. So I was like, that was proper disrespectful. So as he done that, he slapped my hand away. So I just gave him a little backhand to the face and gave him a little slap in the face. And I was like, so if you're going to be disrespectful to me, I'm going to be disrespectful to you. Then I slapped him, and straight away, this is before any cameras or anything was around. And then straight away, there was loads, and we actually had to be pulled apart. So the minute we came face to face, there was already kind of words and that exchange, and that was before any cameras or any of that was out. So no, there's genuine niggles there. Me and him genuinely don't like each other, but that's part of the game. I'm sure after the fight we'll have a lot of respect for each other, and we'll shake hands and on to the next, you know.
Yeah.
Well, I'm taking his belt, and that's all that matters to me.
Interestingly, before the Garrity fight, there was a similar sort of niggle, but once you got into the ring, you were really cool and calculated, and it was a really clinical performance. Are you going to bring emotion into this fight, or do you think you'll be able to, given the huge occasion and the St. Patrick's weekend and all that stuff that goes with it, do you think you'll be able to stay focused and stick to the job at hand?
100%. The whole thing about being a professional is you have to act like a professional under serious stress and stuff like that, you know? So for me, this is going to be the most calculated that you're going to ever see of me. Before, even with the Farmwell fight, I'd get hit with a big shot and I'd be trying to get one back. I'd jump in, I'd get caught with a silly shot. It happened to me actually in the very first round with Garrity. Let it kind of get to me a little bit, and he hit me with a little rattle punch, and when I went against the ropes, he caught me again. I was like, oh my God. So then I just went to war with him after that, second and third round. But for me, this time it's going to be cool, calm, calculated the whole way through. This is going to be the best performance you ever see of me. We have a strict game plan, so this is going to be something that you've never seen from me before. Trust me. The whole occasion, that stuff won't bother me. That won't bother me at all, because I've been knowing this is going to come a long time now at this stage. Yeah,
and uniquely enough, you, as a southpaw yourself, you've fought a fair few southpaws over the years, which is unusual in itself. But do you think that's going to be an issue, or I don't expect you to give me the game plan, but is there anything you're going to focus on specifically rather, that you think you can get at him? Is there a weakness in his game?
100%. There's loads of things that I can do, so I'm not going to give the game plan in case someone's listening to it or whatever, or it comes out online and he's listening, you know, or his team listens or whatever. I'm not going to tell the game plan, but you're going to see the game plan. It's going to be so obvious, the game plan, from the word go,
right,
and then from 3, 4, 5, 6 on, you're going to see how the game plan all unfolds. It's going to be magical, trust me.
Great stuff, Jono. And are you looking forward to bringing the world title home next week then?
Oh, 100%. That's all. It's all I visualise. You know, I have a big poster up on my wall on my sitting room, and with me already with that belt around my waist. You know what I mean? Got a photoshopped onto me. So, well, the missus got a photoshopped onto me. So, trust me, that's all I'm waking up and seeing every single day. So, that belt is already mine in my eyes. He's coming into my territory. Once he's in that ring, I'm going to rip him apart.
Okay, so that is Jono Carroll speaking to Ronan Mullen and Simon Maguire. Ronan Mullen is in Philadelphia. Ronan, how are you doing?
Lads, what's the crack? How are things?
Very well. No sign of a Philly cheesesteak in your hand there?
No, I've been given a few different recommendations, not least by yourself, but I will get one before I leave. That is the plan.
Andy, you weren't ever lucky enough to fight in Philadelphia, were you?
No, I never fought in Philadelphia. I visited there a few times, and for different reasons. And a good friend of mine was actually, he lived in Joe Frazier's gym.
Yeah.
This guy from England named Richard Sloan, who does all the posters and covers of the Ring magazine. When you see the painting, looks like a Leonard Neiman painting. He does those now.
Class.
So when he first moved there, this would have been in the early 90s, he started living with Joe Frazier, so we went and visited the old gym, what was the old gym then, Yeah,
no, it's a city steeped in boxing history. Ronan, you obviously made the trip over. Is there many Irish fans over there, or are the bulk of the crowd on Friday night going to be Irish people based over in the States?
Yeah, well, Eddie Hearn was basically suggesting this is going to be the biggest American crowd that the Matchroom USA brand has had so far. I think the arena holds 10,000. It's a college arena, Lycurgus, I think it's called. 10,000 seater. I think there'll be around 7 or 8 in there on the night. And as you said, they're really tapping into the Philadelphia market and the Irish market, given the St. Patrick's weekend vibe and whatnot. This is the first world title fight headlined by a Philly fighter in Philadelphia in 16 years. Bernard Hopkins was the last. So they're really banging the drum about that. Tevin Farmer and Gabe Rosado, who's on the undercard, were at the 76ers game on Tuesday, basically bringing out the game ball at the start of the match. So that's kind of, we're really trying to get the message across that this is sort of a big deal. And hopefully it will come to pass. There's some really 50-50s on the card, and at the top end, 2 world title fights. The odds would suggest possibly one-sided, but I think there could be a few shocks there,
Yeah, you're at the press conference. What was the feeling there? Jono Carroll, we just heard from there. He's obviously very confident. He's never really lacked confidence, but was there any telltale signs, maybe the occasion, what's in front of him, maybe it's the reality starting to kick in a bit?
Yeah, he spoke really well. I don't know if you saw the end of the press conference where sort of lit the touch paper and they both sort of went at each other, but before that they both spoke really well, rather. It was interesting that Tevin Farmer was about 45 minutes late. Eddie Hearn made the point that when he was challenger, he would have been an hour early trying to get all the media he could, but now he seemed a bit more chilled and he turned up in a tracksuit and flip-flops. And Jono Carroll was making that point where Jono came in a suit and looked, prim and proper for the occasion. Tevin Farmer, it seemed like a throwaway remark, but he said, "Sorry, I'm late. Making weight is never easy." And Jono Carroll really honed in on that. He's like, you look small, you look drained. Whereas Jono he looked really healthy, and as I said, spoke really well, confident. We spoke before about Paddy Donovan had this sort of intangible thing about him. Jono maybe a little bit less so, but there is an X factor about him where you sort of believe him. You hear all this ostentatious stuff over the years from different fighters. They never back it up. There is something about him where I think even if he doesn't win, he's going to give a really good account of himself.
Yeah, and that's it, Andy. If he does give a really good account of himself and comes up just short, he might get more world title shots. Now, he can't think like that because he's got to think, this might be my only shot. This is what I've worked for. You were at his last fight, the Frenwa fight, and, it could have, if Frenwa was given the fight, he couldn't have had too many arguments that night.
Yeah, he's a fight in which he started really well and then kind of, not that he faded, but kind of became very predictable in his approach and how his attacks. And then Frenwa, and he's such an experienced fighter, I think he was 48-2, so 50 fights, started to read his patterns and just started to counter him and really just nullify everything he did. And in Farmer, he's fighting a similar fighter, although he's not as experienced with ring fights. He's from Philadelphia, and those guys have gym walls, and you can see how that Farmer's come up the hard way. He lost 3 or 4 of his first 15 fights or something, and now he's come. That's really unusual to lose so many fights early in your career and come back and become a world champion. It shows that he has character and a kind of persistence and a resourcefulness kind of way to find a way to win. So Carroll has to be, I know he has to be relentless and going forward, but he has to do it with more tact than he did against Frenwa. He can't just walk into this guy. He's going to have to set up his attacks and be unpredictable or use feints. But like you said, he's a super positive guy. You know, you can follow him on Twitter and it's like an inspirational quote per day, and sometimes you wonder where he's getting these things, but like he believes it. You know, he's all about this positive mental attitude and these affirmations, and I think if he puts it out there into the universe, he'll reap the rewards, kind of a thing. It'll kind of manifest itself through him. He's saying and predicting these things. So he said he's going to beat Tevin Farmer. When you hear him say it, you kind of believe what he's saying because there's so much conviction in his voice. But sometimes the reality, you know, your intention, they don't really meet. But with Jono Carroll, you just kind of think like, if Tevin Farmer's not at his best, and if Ron, like Ron was saying, if there is those struggles with weight, and there's some distraction, and there's always pressure fighting at home as well. It's much easier to go out on the road when no one's expecting anything of you. Then Jono Carroll might upset him.
Yeah, Simon, it's clash of two southpaws, and I suppose we want to see what Tevin Farmer is like if Carroll puts him under pressure from the very start, from the first round. Yeah,
I mean, Carroll's last three of his last four fights been against southpaws, so he's kind of used to the odd nature of fighting a fellow southpaw. But Farmer is used to fighting guys who come forward the whole time. That's his, you know, and whereas Carroll wouldn't be used to fighting stylistically against Farmer, and Frenois was probably the closest he's ever fought to Farmer, and he really, really struggled in that fight, I thought anyway. Now, when the fight was announced, I didn't give him a chance, and then we did the interview, and as Andy says, he was talking, he was like, yeah, he does have a chance. And then I kind of think about it again and going, I just can't see it. I think he'll be far better for the fight. I think he'll give it a proper go. I just think the Farmer will be far too elusive. And like he was talking there about people swinging and going for Farmer's head and missing, so that would indicate that he's going to go to the body. But even still, I just can't see him. I think he might be too flat-footed to get close to Farmer at this particular time. I could see them rematching further down the line, and maybe depending on how he does, he might have a better chance. I just can't see it. I think stylistically it's just a terrible, terrible matchup for him.
Yeah, Ronan, obviously Tevin Farmer beat James Tennyson last year, and it was body shots that did it for him, so there's nothing there, there's a good chance that he's going to go to the body of Jono Carroll as well. And I think this has the look of a fight that will go the distance.
Yeah, I think Jono Carroll's best chance would be to score a stoppage of some sort. He's never been a real one-punch knockout merchant, but he's talking about breaking him down, and while he wouldn't give Simon and me the exact game plan, I think the implication was clear that he's going to be targeting Farmer's body, and that should make for an interesting dynamic. As Simon said, a lot of headhunters have come looking for Farmer in his last few fights. It hasn't really played out to any great degree, but it's hard not to have a ton of respect for Tevin Farmer. You know, since he won his world title, I think in August, against Billy Dibb, he's defended it 3 times, or this will be his 3rd defence, probably the busiest world champion out there. And he's got financial legacy secured. He got on that DAZN gravy train early. He was at that initial unveiling, and you've seen the big hitters DAZN have added since, and it's sort of a rising tide will lift all boats. You see Canelo, Golovkin, and obviously Anthony Joshua has been there as well, so that money's coming into the service. All the fighters are getting paid. So Farmer's in a great position. He just needs to build on this. And there has been talk about Gervonta Davis. Eddie Hearn said he's going to make an offer live on TV after the fight, which kind of would suggest Eddie Hearn knows or thinks he knows where the cards are going to fall on Friday. But Jono Carroll has no qualms about that. He knows Eddie Hearn's in the business of making money here, so he didn't mind that so much. But Jono was out there to prove him wrong on Friday. And just on the Frenois fight, like Jono, he said he didn't underestimate him, but as I said, the implications were clear on that as well. He said after the weigh-in for the Frenois fight, he went to Nando's to rehydrate. This time he's got his nutrition spot on, so he won't be doing anything stupid like that this time. This is a keen opportunity, and Jono's a young pro. Like me and Simon spoke to him about the prize fighter experience. That's not that long ago in the grand scheme of things, you know. And he's a young pro. He's only 26, and much like James Tennyson, if the worst thing happens, he can come again. I just think Jono will put Farmer to the pin of his collar. It does look like Farmer has taken Carroll for granted, even ever so slightly, and that might be enough to open the door, and hopefully Jono can just burst right through that door, you know.
I suppose, Andy, one thing we're going to find out on Friday night is what level Jono Carroll is at, because, you know, we can see fighters that domestic level, European level, but when it comes to stepping up to the world level, they just fall short. So that's what I'm really looking forward to, because, you know, he comes across as a really nice guy. He's very positive, he's entertaining, he's got the look, he's ticking all the boxes. Now we're going to find out, can he tick the hardest one of all?
Yeah. It's it's a huge step between those levels. Domestic. You've seen it with Ritson.
Yeah.
Ronan's favourite.
It's funny to bring that up.
It's just that those levels are so big. You can be so dominant at domestic as Jono has been, and European, friend-wise, kind of at his European level.
Yeah.
And he just scraped by. But you can grow from that, and sometimes you need the platform, like this world stage that he's on, to elevate yourself to that level. It's a huge, in terms of the levels, are huge differences, but what the fighters do at that level, at the high level, are only all the small little things that are not so, the subtle things that are not so apparent to everybody, that make them world class. That, I can remember when I was coming up there, I was like, I'm not that different from this guy. He's world champion. But when you see them, when you're up close, or when you're in the ring with them, it's the small things that you can't see from the outside that they do. The small steps, the feints, the little moves, the instincts they build up over the years that make them so great. So it'll be interesting to see if Jono can take that step into that world level. Sometimes, as in my case, you need to taste it first. You need to experience it first. And if you're not successful, that's how you prepare. You kind of see where your mistakes are, and then you can come again. So, he's talking about going to the body of Tevin Farmer. He's not an easy guy to hit to the body. He's not an easy guy to hit to the head, certainly, because he's so side on, so angular, and he has that kind of shoulder forward, a la like Floyd Mayweather, that he kind of, as you see, he'll move his head, he'll bob and weave, and he'll use his shoulder to protect him. And when you're going to the body with him, you will leave yourself exposed. So, first of all, you got to get close enough to hit him to the body, and in doing that, you're going to pay the price from the long jabs and the long punches. But when you get close to him, then you're going to leave yourself exposed, because he is a catch and counter guy, Tevin Farmer. So when you hit him to the body, he will catch it and try and check hook you or whatever it might be. These are it's a risky. These are the risks you have to take. You're throwing the dice when you're in the ring, and as one punch can change the fight and can change your life. So. But all those small things, like I said, at world level, you repeat them every day, you do them every day, through repetition, and they'll make the difference in the fight, So we hope that Jono Carroll doesn't know those things.
Yeah, and Ronan, obviously, the atmosphere is building in Philadelphia. It's his first world title shot, and, some people might feel that it's a case of you might have to lose one to go on and win one, but it's also important that he doesn't let this just go by without giving it taking risks and having a proper crack at it. You see people in title fights, they seem to be quite content just to get through the 12 rounds and be well beaten on points by a champion. But, so Jono Carroll mightn't get too many chances to fight for a world title.
Yeah, and you mentioned the atmosphere there, and there's fighting at home and then there's fighting at home. And Tevin Farmer, the arena is literally 2 minutes walk from where he grew up on Broad Street. You could hit it with a stone. So this is going to be, all his friends, all his family are going to be packed in that arena. It's going to be a real cauldron atmosphere. And there are a fair few Irish over here. Jono brought a good few with him. So I don't think he's going to struggle to rise to the occasion. He seems that he's going to draw on that as a resource more than anything, and going to try and feed off that energy. The worst thing he could do is get too drawn into that, and maybe 3 and 4 rounds go by and he's like, I need to get going here. He needs to be clued in from the start, not get caught cold early, because Farmer, while himself isn't a huge puncher or notorious finisher, he can put people away if the chance arises. So Jono just needs to be clued in. Don't get, enjoy the occasion, but don't get too overawed by it, and just get cracking from round one. Okay,
lads. Anyone here think that Jono Carroll can become a world champion on Friday night?
Yeah, it's not impossible. I think he has a chance. The kind of stars have to align for him in terms of, the conditions have to be right. He has to be switched on. He has to be ready to go in there and go off for a fire. But he can do it. Tevin Farmer's no Superman. He's a good fighter. He didn't look that good himself in his last fight. He kind of went through a 12-round kind of, was that with Fonseca? He didn't look great. And Jono Carroll's a better fighter than Fonseca in my eyes. So I'm giving him a shot. Farmer's the favourite, but I'm giving Jono a very good shot.
It's not inconceivable, but I can't see it in this particular case. I think it could be very similar to Canelo against Mayweather. You learn a severe lesson, but then you come back far stronger. Or even maybe Bernard Dunn against Martinez, where you realise that
I hope it doesn't end that way.
No, but I mean, in terms of you come back, and go on and win a world title. So it's not inconceivable. I can see it being 9 rounds to 3 or 10 rounds to 2 to Farmer over the weekend. So not this time.
Yeah. Ronan, what are you thinking? You're on the ground in Philadelphia.
I think journalistic impartiality is going to go out the window. I will be rooting for Jono. I hope he does win. As Andy said, I give him a good shot. I looked at the odds when they first came out. I was dumbfounded that James Tennyson was a shorter underdog than Jono is. So I think Jono has a good shot. And Farmer hasn't fought any spectacular opposition, really. Jono is, as Andy said, a step up from his last opponent. So, hopefully the stars align and he can do the job. I'll be rooting for him anyway. Yeah, and I suppose what we haven't even factored in as well, that place could be full of Irish fans absolutely buzzing, because before that fight, Katie Taylor fights Rose Valente, and you wonder if Katie wins, which we all expect her to do, even Jono Carroll, is that going to, when you're in your changing room, are you aware of what's going on?
You are, but you're totally clued in on yourself, and it's all irrelevant. But just going back to the predictions, and as Ronan was saying, the odds, the Fremont fight has really hurt Carl, and that's why we're also before the Fremont fight, you say, well, he's got a shot. I can remember being in here in the studio with you guys and saying that he'll have a shot against Fremont, but the Fremont fight hurt him. And just to go back to that, I remember at the press conference before the Fremont fight, he did more talking about Pharma than he did about Fremont. He didn't mention Fremont. He wasn't even looking at it. He was soon after this fight, I'm going to fight Pharma and be world champion. That's what he was saying. So no matter what he says, he did overlook him in some respect. I'll give him a shot, but he's a slight underdog. That's all in my eyes.
Yeah, well, look, let's hope he produces the best performance of his career and becomes a world champion. Mentioned Katie Taylor. Katie Taylor is going to look to add to her IBF and WBA lightweight titles. Squares off against the unbeaten Brazilian and the current WBO champion Rose Valente. And Katie joined Ronan and Nathan on Off the Ball last week to look ahead to the fight and what could be a huge year for the 2012 Olympic champion.
It feels as though things have changed over the last couple of months in terms of how the future is looking for you. Around the time of the Cindy Serrano fight and frustrations in the ring, but it also felt at that stage that maybe a lot of your potential opponents, the really eye-catching ones, were running away from you, and that even if the money was on the table, the fights weren't going to happen. Whereas now we see next week you're going to get the opportunity to win a third belt against Rose Valente. There's a lot of speculation that when Anthony Joshua goes to Madison Square Garden that we might have a fight against Delphine Persoon for the undisputed lightweight title. Again, talk that maybe Amanda Serrano's back on the table. Is that your sense as well, that these fights are now going to happen?
Yeah, definitely. I think it can be frustrating in the program. Obviously, a lot of times you are waiting for these opponents to actually step up, and just with the business side of things as well, sometimes you are waiting for more money or whatnot, but I just want to go in and fight the best, and thankfully I do have this opportunity to fight for the WBO belt, the unified division again, and this year could possibly be the biggest year of my career. It could be a monumental year if everything goes to plan with Rose Valente and then Delphine Persoon, and then hopefully a huge mega fight with Amanda Serrano. But obviously those fights can't happen if I don't come through Rose Valente next week. That's the only girl I'm really focusing on right now, but it could be an absolutely huge year for me.
How involved are you on the business side of things? I'm sure you'd love to just spend all your time in the gym and in the ring, but it is a pro game and you want to make sure you're well looked after and you're getting your fair share and you're getting the most out of your career. Have you had to take more of an interest in the business side of things than you might have expected before you turned pro?
I think I'm learning kind of as I go along. Thankfully, I have a great team of people around me, and Brian, my manager, kind of looks after that side of things for me, and I feel like I'm making more money than I ever I thought I could be really at this stage of my career in the program, which is absolutely great for me. That it's never been about the money for me, but it's obviously great when you are seeing those the money with big fights as well, and so I think I am definitely learning along the way, and I understand the business side of things a lot more than I did when I first turned pro. But as I said, I just kind of leave that stuff up to Brian, and I pretty much am just focusing on the training while I am out here.
Yeah, and Katie, I know the climate in Dublin at the moment means it's difficult to stage a major fight in these parts, but you have established a huge following in Britain, and now obviously this is going to be your 5th fight in the States. Is it good to have that sort of home from home, to know you're a big draw in America, and obviously DAZN and Sky Sports are right behind you as well?
Yeah, it is fantastic. I think that the support what I have been out here in America has been absolutely fantastic. Every time I have fought out here, obviously the ultimate dream would the fight at home in Ireland someday, but it doesn't look likely for the time being. But thankfully, I am getting a chance to box on these huge cards, huge undercards, and even the potential that Amanda Serrano fight could be a headline fight as well. So I am getting great opportunities, which is absolutely amazing for me.
Yeah, and I know we can talk in terms of these grand plans and future opponents, but you have a big test in front of you next weekend. Much like Eva Wallström, Volante's undefeated, a champion in her own right. Have you watched much taping, or what kind of fight are you expecting this to be?
Yeah, she's obviously a very good fighter. She's a very proud champion. She's very, very strong, a big right hand. She's a dangerous fighter, so she's definitely coming to win next week. She wants to hold on to her own belt and the unified division as well. So there's no easy fights at this stage of my career. Every fight's going to be tough. I think it could possibly be a very physical fight. Obviously, I'll try to make the fight as easy as I can, but in a 10-round fight, there are times where I am going to getting close as well and then mix it up a small bit. But yeah, I think it will be an entertaining fight and a fight that the fans will definitely enjoy.
An awful lot of people love getting to know you a little bit better in Ross Whittaker's documentary. Have you managed to watch it yet? Have you put yourself through it?
I haven't actually. No, I don't think I'll ever watch it. But
why?
But I actually don't like watching myself on TV. To be honest, I hate hearing the sound of my own voice and stuff like that. But and I hear it's quite emotional as well. So I know what happened in my own life. I don't think I need to watch it on TV.
That is a very fair point, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah.
You mentioned your legacy within boxing, and Irish boxing in particular. Like, I was at the National Elite Finals, and the standard of women's boxing has improved leaps and bounds, and it's without exception, all the fighters will name check you as an inspiration and the reason they got into the sport. You must take a tremendous amount of pride in that you've sort of spawned this new generation of Irish talent, effectively.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's probably one of the most satisfying parts about this journey, really, is seeing so many women boxing now and seeing the standard of boxing in Ireland going up so much over the last few years, and seeing the success of some of the girls as well is absolutely phenomenal. So that's what it's all about, really. That is a great legacy to leave behind, and that's has been one of the most satisfying parts about it.
Yeah, I guess in a way you're sort of fighting for two separate legacies. There's one that's already secure that Ronan touched on of inspiring the next generation and being this role model, and I don't think that will ever be forgotten no matter what happens in the ring. But I guess at the moment the full focus is on leaving that second legacy in the ring and unifying those titles, and that in 20 years' time, when people talk about not just a game changer but quite simply the best female boxer of all time, that they're talking about you.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I mean, that's always been a dream of mine. When I turned pro a few years ago, I wanted to become the undisputed champion. I want to be number one on the pound-for-pound list. And as I said, in years to come, I want people to mention my name. It will be an honour to be a Hall of Famer in the future as well. So there's a lot to be fighting for. I have big dreams and big visions, and it's as I said, I'm in a great position. I have a chance to box in these big shows. I'm making great money at the moment as well, and I have a great team of people, and I feel like I am going from strength to strength. So it's a great position that I'm in at the moment.
Yeah, I saw quotes recently that you said you might still be fighting at 40.
Yeah,
another 8 years.
I don't know where they got that from. I mean, if I could, I definitely would, but we'll see. We'll take it year by year.
Yeah,
I guess.
Have you thought? Yeah. Do you stop to consider what would be next, that when you eventually do retire?
To be honest, I have no idea what I do if I retire now. To be honest, I guess I hope that's not until another few years anyway. But yeah, I haven't got a clue what I would do right now. But at the moment, I feel like I have 20 years after me, and I'm a very young 32-year-old. I hate actually mentioning my age sometimes. It's terrible. I'm actually 32 years of age, but I feel a very young 32 years of age, and I feel like I have 20 of years left in me.
All right, that was Katie Taylor speaking to Ronan and Nathan on Off the Ball last week. And Ronan, it really could be a massive year for Katie Taylor. Obviously has won world titles a pro, an amateur, an Olympic champion. But she said in that interview with yourself and Nathan, this could be the biggest year of her career.
Yeah, there's always been a cool confidence about Katie Taylor. Even when she's trying to be reserved, you can sense the confidence. And as you said, since she unified the titles initially, she has been treading water a little bit, trying to find good opponents. And these fights, Volante included, have been sort of lurking in the background. And, you know, it feels like the dominoes are going to start to fall now, where she's going to fight Volante, hopefully get that done. Delphine Pursuing, that fight's basically done for the Joshua undercard. And then you're talking about a super fight, quote unquote, towards the end of the year with an Amanda Serrano or Cecilia Breikhouse or someone like that. So, as you said, 2019's to call it a breakout year would be ridiculous because she's already a big star. But Eddie Hearn put out a tweet the other day saying Katie Taylor is my favourite fighter. I'm not sure if he means commercially, he probably means more the story and what she represents. So, you know, I think 2019 is going to be a signature year for her, and hopefully, you know, these fights, as we discussed previously, these are steps up, incremental steps, and even leaps up. You know, when you're unifying titles, fighting fellow champions, it's a whole different dynamic to taking on a challenger. Like last time I saw Katie was against Cindy Serrano in Boston, and Serrano was in, you know, survival mode from the get-go, and that won't be the case this time. Volante's going to go out on her sword, if nothing else, and put it up to Katie. From the tape I've watched, Volante, you know, technically good, had a decent amateur pedigree, but, you know, slow, and you're going to expect that Katie will take advantage of that, make her miss and make her pay. That's probably how this fight's going to play out. But as you said, a huge Irish contingent on show, and Katie's going to hopefully set the place on fire.
Yeah, Andy, and we want to see Katie Taylor, the best of her. And you feel to see the best of her, she has to be tested. That's when she thrives, where she's not fighting a Serrano, a Cindy Serrano, where she's just running for 10 rounds. And it can be quite hard because they're 2-minute rounds to try and get yourself into the round, and a bit of frustration. And actually, the lads touching it with Katie, talking about the frustration of fighting people like that, where, you know, they're just there to survive. Whereas Wallstrom in the last fight, actually, you know, she tried to take her on. You'd imagine the same is going to happen.
It's a different approach when you're fighting those types of opponents. And a lot, like you can see it with Michael Conlon, a lot of boxers, or male or female now, who come out of the amateurs who are really, really good, and they're having these kind of build-in fights, fighting opponents who are way below them in terms of skill and ability. That's what they'll be facing a lot of the time. And it's a different challenge about it's like solving a puzzle and piecing them apart and finding the holes and beating them. And there are different ways to do it. With Katie, like, I've watched Volante, and she's gonna offer no threat at all, really. She's without saying that she's a world champion, it's hard to believe, but she's quite poor, you know. And from now at this stage in Katie's career, and with the fights that are potentially going to happen this year with Poon-Son, with Brockhouse or Serrano, I would like to see more of an adaptation to the professional game, more of a kind of a stylistic, kind of a spitefulness. And I know she's kind of, like, for her, it's 2-minute rounds, so it's hard. And she set out this, she wants the fights to be entertaining, so she's always willing to take punches, which the crowd like. So it's not like a one-sided ball, and they want to. So, but for me, I've seen enough of that now. I've seen enough of having hard fights. I want to see a piecing together, strategically planning, methodically planning a fight, thinking 3 or 4 rounds ahead, investing early, and not being from moment to moment where she's. It's not in a panic, but where she's kind of reacting to what's happened, kind of strategically planning the fight out and taking her opponent apart and stopping him. I would like to see that now, start to have those finishes. And that's the next challenge for her. That's what I see anyway. She's had these couple of years of kind of getting used to the professional game, kind of shedding her amateur style if she can, which is hard because she's so ingrained in it. And it's still only 2-minute rounds, so in some ways her amateur style kind of suits the professional game. She's just doing it over a longer duration, but I would like to see her now start to take opponents apart and start to get stoppages. If not knockouts, definitely stoppages.
Yeah, and that's, I suppose, the more stoppages she gets, Simon, the more it's going to appeal. But, like, there is so much respect for Katie Taylor. Eddie Hearn, Ronan mentioned Eddie Hearn, even Anthony Joshua talks about her. He says when he watches her, he learns things from her. So it's a case of just, you know, we expect her to win this weekend. It's another belt. it just means that she becomes an even more attractive proposition for other fighters, because there was a stage where we're thinking they're all ducking her, they don't want to fight her. That seems to be gone now, that she's just going to keep going up the levels in terms of herself, but also the opponents she's facing. And the thoughts of that Serrano fight, Amanda Serrano, that's the one we want.
Yeah, well, I think, just to add on to what Andy's saying there, like, Eddie Hearn has delivered for Katie Taylor. Like, yeah. I remember when they signed it and I saw that she was going to Eddie Hearn, I was like, ugh. I couldn't see the two meshing together, but it's worked out perfectly. And now she is the money fight. I think maybe people, the other women, did want to get a beating for nothing, but now they're all going to be well paid. And Eddie Hearn has done that for not just for Katie, but for her opponents as well. Looking forward to this particular fight. Of the tape I've seen, I'd still say the Wallstrom fight was Katie's toughest and will be after this one. Wallstrom came to fight. She changed her tactics in round 3 or 4, and it was a bit of a test there. Volante, I mean, her record is very padded. Tough fights, maybe she's been in 2, whereas Katie's been in far more. And again, I actually think Katie will stop Volante this weekend.
Ronan, what's the reaction like in Philadelphia for Katie Taylor?
She's always the star attraction. Even at the last fight when Demetrius Andrade was headlining, it was Katie that the media were congregating around, and she is sort of representative. I'm not sure Eddie Hearn always makes the point that she's reinvented women's boxing, but you do get the sense it's sort of Katie Taylor on one side and then everyone else on the other side. So I wouldn't put a whole lot of stock in that. But she's a huge star on this card, and given that Farmer is has got that home contingent as well, it's going to mesh quite nicely. I think, as I mentioned at the start, this is the biggest crowd and Matchroom USA show has had to date, and Katie Taylor is a huge part of that. While Jono and Farmer is probably a more competitive fight, Katie's the attraction that's going to draw people into the arena, I think.
Yeah, and just looking at the other fighters on the card, John Joe Nevin, obviously such a great amateur, and he's on the card as well. Luke Campbell, who he shared the ring with in that Olympic final, is also on the card. John Joe Nevin, what do you think, what is the best we can hope for with John Joe Nevin? So much talent. His career has stalled for many different reasons, some well publicised, Ronan, but what are you looking to see from John Joe Nevin this weekend?
It's just a win on a big platform and sort of get his name back into the conversation. There was a poignancy about seeing himself and Luke Campbell seated out of centre shot on the stage. It was was it 7 years ago they were in this nip and tuck brilliant Olympic final, and 7 years later they're looking at other people chasing world honours. They've both underachieved to different levels. Luke Campbell, I think if you had said after this many years as a pro he'd yet to win a world title, I think most people would have been surprised by that. I did think he might have edged it against Jorge Linares. He didn't quite get the job done there. But he's mandatory for Mikey Garcia, whom it seems like Mikey Garcia, if he wins, he's certainly leaving the lightweight division. Even if he loses, it's going to be a tough out to get back down to 135 pounds. So Luke Campbell's on the right road. He's going down the WBC route and will have a shot before the end of the year. John Joe Nevin, it's just hard to know. I haven't seen him fight live in a good few years now, so I'm looking forward to seeing that at least, just to see has he still got that fast twitch stuff that made him such a standout in the amateurs. That those out of ring issues that you mentioned would lead you to believe possibly not, but it's not quite too late for Jono. Indian summers have happened with amateur boxers who maybe stalled in the early part of their career. Hopefully John Joe is in a similar boat.
Yeah, some talent, Andy.
Yeah, talent unquestionable, but dedication and his drive, and he has to show that now. He has to show desire to push himself up the rankings and see if he's serious about being a professional fighter. He's the forgotten man, Olympic silver medalist. I don't know, one of two in Ireland, for him and Kenneth Egan, and he's just forgotten about, So he has to show what he's about, and this is a big stage for him, and this is the perfect platform for him to do it, and get people talking about him again. Because as of now, he's kind of gone off the radar. There's no doubt about it. He can do it. Yeah. With the right trainer now, as he showed it, he could do it at his top level as an amateur. So he should be able to do it as a pro. He just has to get down to business and get
when he went pro, did you think, this guy can really carve out a cool career for himself?
Yeah, and his style as an amateur maybe not have been suited to professional boxing, but there's not only one style that will always win in professional boxing, and he has to adapt. But in terms of his ability and what he can do, and you know, we go back to 2012, he should have won that final. I think he took Luke, like when he beat the Cuban in the semi-final, it was an unbelievable performance, one of the best performances by an Irish boxer in an amateur ring. And then I think he kind of took Luke Campbell for granted because he had beaten him before, and just the way their two careers have kind of gone from that one day, you know. Luke Campbell, he's fought for a world title, he's been there, and now he's probably likely going to fight for another world title soon again. Of course they'll line him up for a world title. And John Joe Nevin's kind of just been left kind of in the abyss, really, you know. Remember he signed with Amir Khan and kind of fell apart, and I don't know, but he has to show desire, has to show that he wants to be at the top, and this is it. This is the weekend for him to show it.
Yeah.
I can't remember. The one thing I remember from that Olympic final is that Katie was fighting the day before, and the arena was green, white and orange, and then everyone disappeared the next day. So he was up against the home fighter in Campbell, and you know, he should have maybe it wasn't until he walked into the ring that he realised this wasn't going to be the same. I think maybe he thought it would be a carnival atmosphere that there was the day before, and just nobody turned up.
Probably still out from the night before.
Yeah, well, I mean, they should have turned up. You know, is the only way to really say it. Where were they? Yeah. You know, so that's on them. We're not turning up. They're in the city. So. Yeah,
but I mean, hard to get tickets. Like in fairness, Katie Taylor was fighting a Russian, whereas you know, John Joe Nevin's fighting.
Well, she fought Jonas in the quarterfinal, and I think one of the commentators said it was Britain's first away fight or first away clash in the entire Olympics. So the tickets could have been got if they wanted to get them.
Yeah, there was like Katie Taylor, like it was the Olympics for Irish point of view was all about Katie Taylor. But I know what you're saying, like that, you know, he would have been going into the backyard of an opponent.
It was disappointing considering it was the same arena and it was the very next day. But now that's 6 or 7 years ago. Now we can move on. Well, I surely should move on at this stage. But the fact that the two boys are on the same card, it clearly puts them on a collision course. Not maybe in the next fight, but if they bout win again, it sets up a nice storyline. People love that kind of Olympic final fight in the pros again.
Yeah, we'll probably talk about that in a few minutes as well with Michael Conlan and Nikitin as well. Ronan, before we let you go, anything else this weekend that you're looking forward to?
Yeah, even on the Philly card, there's some nice action. Gabe Rosado, I'm not sure if Andy ever came across him, but he's back in world title contention. If he wins against Magic Selecki at the weekend, Demetrius Andrade, that fight's basically done. So the winner of that fight, regardless of who wins, is next for Andrade. So huge carrot dangling for them. Rosado, he's only 33. It feels like he's been around forever, but I think he first burst into people's consciousness when he lost to Golovkin. That was about 6 years ago. Golovkin's second fight in America. So Rosado, every time he's come up against top opposition and even fringe world contenders, he's come up short. So this is probably his last chance to get in for world honours. There's a nice Philly derby between Hank Lundy and Avery Sparrow. Sparrow's the sort of young up-and-comer brash talker, and Hank Lundy's the grizzled veteran. I think that fight's kicking off the card, so that's a great matchup. And then I tweeted out a picture of the 3 Olympic champions. Danny Aryalusinov is on the card as well, so 3 Olympic gold medalists on the card in Philly. So I'm looking forward to it. It's a bit of a smaller card than the one in Boston, but good quality, I think, all around.
Ronan, you go off there now and run up the rocky steps, get yourself a cheesesteak, and I think you're taking in a game as well, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm going to the Flyers against the Washington Capitals hockey. I've never been to a hockey match, so I'm looking forward to that.
Just don't get
I'm going to cram in as much of that Philly life as you said there, Phil, as much as I can.
Lovely stuff. That's Ronan Mullen in Philadelphia. I have to say, pretty jealous. I'd like to be going to Philly on a Friday night to watch some boxing.
Yeah, well, if I could rub a few shekels together, I would have headed over myself. But
as I said, it's a massive weekend though for Irish fighters. Obviously, you know, Michael Conlan is in action on St. Patrick's Day as well. That he's taken on Ruben Garcia Hernandez. Andy, I know you spoke to Michael in the build up to this fight. A few things came up. Actually, we can have a listen to Andy's interview with Michael Conlan, and a couple of things to look out for. I thought interesting to talk about. Obviously, one thing you have in common is training with Adam Booth, and just at times how you felt like a novice because you were readjusting, and also the small matter of maybe an all Belfast fight between Carl Frampton and Michael Conlan, that came up as well, and you can just have a listen to this.
I think it's been fantastic. I feel that I'm learning every single day with Adam. He's a fantastic coach, a fantastic mentor. Not yourself, not just in the sport outside of the ring. He kind of helps gauge you in the way to approach things and how your mindset needs to be. So it's been fantastic. I feel I'm learning all the time, and I'm adding an awful lot to my game each time we're in the gym.
When I went with Adam, I started training with him in 2012, and I had fights here and there, but I was learning all the time in the gym. But it really wasn't until 2014, so 2 years into my time with him, where I felt like I was grasping what he was trying to teach me. I went to him, and I was at that stage I had fought for a world title, and then I go to Adam, and I almost feel like I'm starting as a beginner. Yeah. Have you experienced any of that?
100%, Bandy. I know the feeling. I know exactly what you feel like you're a novice again for some reason. You can't, like, simple things that I'll probably be able to do if I didn't think about it. But when you have to think about these things and understand these things, you start to make them hard for yourself and complicate them. But Adam has a great way of bringing it back to the basics and helping you reconstruct things which you've probably been doing wrong, which you didn't think you were doing wrong. But definitely, I find even still, there's still an awful lot. I'm still not the finished article with Adam. We're still working on a lot of things and perfecting things, because I still have a lot of amateur boxing tendencies, on the toes, up too straight at times, and coming out too high. But these are all things which I've been working on since I got into the gym, and it just takes time, as you know, that they kind of get out of the old ways in the Adams type of boxing.
For me, it definitely affected my confidence. In those times, it kind of makes you guess yourself. And sometimes you have to remind yourself, especially in your case, you're a two-time Olympian, you're a world champion as an amateur, and you're undefeated as a pro. Wherever those kind of thoughts in your head where you think, like, am I ever going to get this? Or
definitely, or sometimes I think when I'm doing things and I can't get what he's telling me to do, and I can't seem to grasp it. It's like I feel like sometimes I'm terrible. I feel like I'm not even as good as what I've done. Sometimes I've been wondering how have I achieved so much when I'm doing these things wrong. So sometimes it does knock your confidence, but it's all just a learning game, isn't it?
Well, the payoff in the long run, you kind of have to persevere and just trust in the process. What Adam says, the journey is the destination, as you know. Yeah. He's well versed in saying that. So talk to me about Ruben Garcia Hernandez. What kind of threat does he pose?
No, listen, he's very tough. He's been stopped once, and I watched it. I watched the bout he got stopped, and he fought Randy Caballero, and it was just consistent pressure, and he was young still, and Randy just after winning the world title, so he was out to make a statement in his hometown. But I watched him against Dinner. He's tricky. He's your typical kind of Mexican where, he can go to war if you give him confidence. But if you take his confidence away really quick or don't let him gain any confidence, he's going to probably be a bit negative at times, but always looking to counter and always looking to put the shots together. He'll be in front of me. He's not going to be running like crazy, but I think he still kind of will be negative and tough. He's a tough, durable dude.
Yeah, well, you're kind of, in some ways, you're kind of, not that you kind of, because you're so skillful, it kind of works against you, because some of the fights I've seen, and I would always check out who you're fighting, your opponents, and have a little look at them before the fight, and say, well, this guy'd come to fight. But then when they're stood in front of you, and they see your skill set, and when you're countering them, every move they make, they do go into the shell, and then it becomes even harder for you. You're in a tough position.
It's hard, and you're right. It's crazy. I remember, like, every time Top Rank give a dude and they say this dude's going to come forward. He's exactly what you've been asking for. They get into the ring and they don't. There's some fighters I've watched a lot of their fights faced, and any of these they're fighting, they're going forward and pressuring. But when they get in with me, they seem after like the first 30 seconds, they do not seem to want to commit, and it does put you in an awkward position when you're me, who's a counter puncher predominantly, and I always I like people to try and put the pressure on me because that suits my kind of game. But it seems like I have to forcing off a lot of the stuff, and that's a lot of the thing we've been working on in the gym with Adam is, how we're going to attack and how we're going to get in close and work these little angles and work the aggression, which, you have to have everything in pro boxing. So, I've always kind of had these skills, but we just need to perfect them.
You're also up against it because you're such a big name that these guys will fight better, because if they can go the distance with you, or even if they can even test you, then it's kind of like a feather in their cap, and they're likely to get more fights. So the guys will always step up the game when they come to fight you.
It's like a big target on my back, isn't it? So
yeah,
you're always the guy people want to beat.
I've been close to you in a couple of your pro fights now. The fight in May in New York, and your last fight with Jason Cunningham. One thing that struck me about you, your reaction to the fight, even though you dominated both fights, won clearly every round, most of the rounds against Cunningham, you were very hard on yourself after the fight.
Yeah.
What do you think that is? What do you think that is? Are you your worst critic, or?
I think so, Andy. You know what it is? I've done so much now, and been so successful. I am a perfectionist, and if it's not perfect, even sparring for me, if it's not perfect, I'm not happy. And it's the wrong kind of mindset at times, because you can't beat yourself up a lot too much. And I think Adam has seen I do that an awful lot, and he's kind of had to work with me with it. And my own parents, my dad especially, John, he's always saying to me, "You're way too hard on yourself. Perfection. Nobody is ever going to be perfect. It's very, very. You can be close to it, but you're never really going to be perfect. So you gotta live with it." But I want to kind of be the best I can be, and show my whole skill set and what I can really do, because I know I have a lot of ability, and I just don't feel I've brought it across enough.
You mentioned your dad, John. Obviously, he's your father, but he's also your coach for all your amateur career, and is always is very close with you. And also your brother Jamie. What kind of relationship or working relationship do you have with with both of them?
I speak to them every day. I speak to them every single day I'm in camp. I would, and especially before sparring, after sparring, I would ring them, let them know how I'm getting on, who I'm sparring, what things they would think I should work on. And it's just basically the same as Adam's telling me. And then after, I would ring them and tell them if I got on well, or if it didn't go so well. And they're always just giving me advice. So, they're big parts of my career. Jamie's basically managing me now, and he's someone whose opinion I always value. And if I send him any videos of him sparring, how do you get on, he'll always be brutally honest with me. Same with my dad. And that's what you want. They're two people who I know will always be brutally honest.
At this point, you're 2 years into your pro career. You've achieved more. You achieved a lot more already. Headline in the Garden, which is a great accomplishment.
Yeah.
Where do you see yourself going in the next 2 years?
See, this time next year, St. Patrick's Day at the Garden, I would love to fight for the world title there. And I think that's the aim of Top Rank, what we've been speaking about and stuff. They have been talking about it, and they're even saying maybe this year, but they want to hold it off till next year, kind of. And I don't mind that. I'm happy. Top Rank are known for doing this kind of time and time again of turning amateur fighters into world champions and superstars of the sport of boxing. So I trust them, and I trust my team, trust Adam. I feel I'm in a very good position. So hopefully this time next year I'll be fighting for a world title. And
are there any of the champions at the moment that you would look at, or you would fancy going in against?
Any of them, Andy. Any one of them has a belt. That's I don't mind whoever it is. If it's Warrington, Valdez, if it's Santa Cruz, any of those guys, I don't mind. Whoever it is, it is.
There's always, being from Belfast, being a featherweight, there's always, I don't know, people maybe always compare you to, but do you ever see yourself fighting Carl Frampton someday? I
don't think so. Me and Carl, we have a great friendship now. I remember when I was younger, I wanted the world, and I was saying I want to fight Carl. But the more older I've got, and the closer friendship I've gained with him, obviously we're the same management now, but mainly the closer friendship I've gained with him, you can see that from both opposite sides of the community, and it would not be good for the city. So, it's not a fight I think I need to do. if we were both forced to fight each other and there was huge money on the line, I'm sure both of us would do it. But I honestly just don't think it would be good for Belfast, so I can't see it.
This is be your third time fighting at the Garden.
The third time since St. Patrick's Day. Yeah,
and you're headlining. How do you deal with the pressure?
I feel like I'm used to it now. I think because I got thrown into the deep end in my debut and stuff, and the whole facade of everything and the media obligations and all, it was like someone having a world title fight with that kind of atmosphere and that kind of build up. So I'm kind of used to it now. It's just another fight for me, and especially when you fight there on St. Patrick's Day and the atmosphere in the crowd, I think it adds like an extra few levels to my game. And I think I boxed there the first time and I was obviously nervous. I don't think my performance was too good because I just wanted to get the dude out of there. But the second time it was nice controlled, and I got the guy out second round stoppage. I dropped him with a body shot and I thought that was game over. But he get up and I just pummeled him away and finished it. So I feel that performance alone has showed that I was able to stay cool, calm and collected and go in there and get the job done.
So that's Michael Conlan speaking to yourself, Andy. And one thing that came up, 2 years, he's a pro. He kind of thinks in a year's time he's going to be fighting for world titles. And, he's talking about the likes of Josh Warrington. He obviously has to take care of his next opponent. But what's the kind of talk about Michael Conlan? You obviously would be in contact with Adam.
Well, like traditionally Olympic champion, Olympic, like not champion, but Olympic guy who could have been the champion if if things were different in Rio, but a world champion, they get moved quickly in the program. What with him, this is kind of probably his last really learning fight. There's been a lot of talk about him fighting Nicodin again in June, just avenging that Olympic robbery. And then after that, stepping up the competition, and that's really what he has to do now. He's kind of had his apprenticeship as a professional. Not the easiest one because he was with Manny Rubles for the first year. Now he's with Adam Booth, and that's adjusting. First of all, as from being an amateur, then going to one coach and having a year of that, which is a completely different style, kind of in a Mexican aggressive style of fighting style, then going to Adam, where it's so technical and so explosive and all about feinting and making your opponent punch and then reacting to that. So he's had he hasn't done it easy, that's what I'll say.
You could hear that in the interview, the frustration at times of a guy that's won a world amateur title feeling like
I've
not that good.
I'd fought for a professional world title, and I'd been there with him, and I could relate to I know the feeling because like Adam is hard. He's a very demanding coach, physically in what he wants you to do, but also technically. And sometimes you get doubts, and it does affect your confidence. And but then you get to a certain level, and all of a sudden it clicks. You keep practicing, keep trying in earnest, even though you might not feel like you're getting it, and then it clicks. And I was speaking to Michael's dad after the senior finals, and he said he's kind of clicked. It's kind of clicked because we were speaking before that, and he was saying we're talking about how hard it is to transition. So for Michael, hopefully now we'll see. I've been on here before, and every fight I say I'm looking forward to seeing what he's doing in the gym, show out when he fights, and you've seen glimpses of it. And for him, and I remember myself that when the things that you're learning in the gym, in the ring, and not really working, always revert back to what you know best. And when I see Michael boxing, basic boxing, just doing the simple things, which he's so good at, the jab, just 1, 2, just simple step back and counter. Those are the things that will always, don't forget those things, because those are the things that made him, and add the little things that Adam's teaching him, the kind of complicated things. So we'll hopefully see him play those things out now in a fight on Sunday, and then get Nick out of the way, get that monkey off his back, and then move on to bigger opposition, world level opposition, and then put himself in the frame for a world title fight.
Yeah, he's doing all right though, Simon. He's headlining a card in New York on St. Patrick's Day. But the Nikitin fight, there's talk of that in Belfast. But I find with Conlon as well, he's so harsh on himself. Like, and I know you can't just, think everything's rosy in the garden. But is there a danger that if you're too harsh on yourself, you might hold yourself back a bit?
Well, there's definitely an element of frustration in his voice, and he wants to move things along quicker. But as Andy said, this is probably the last learning point for him, and then he's up to the real killers at world level. The one thing I will take from that interview is that there's a maturity coming through from him now. Particularly, I suppose he kind of realises that he's a role model kind of cross community up there and in Belfast, and that he doesn't want the Frampton fight because he doesn't think it'll be good for the city, as he said himself. I think that shows where his head is at, and he realises now that he's carrying not just himself and his family and his friends, but there's a bigger responsibility. I think that was fantastic to hear. But in terms of, Lomachenko went with Top Rank, and he got a world title fight in his third fight. Now, he lost that, but I think he might have thought when he signed with Top Rank that things would have been expedited a bit more. But he's still a very young professional, and I don't think he even needs a Nikitin fight. I don't think we need to
I think he talks about just closure almost. That's why he wants it.
I think the closure was in the ring when he gave the fingers to everyone.
I don't know. Personally speaking, I want to see him. I kind of want to see him slap Nikitin around for a few rounds, and
it's still a good learning fight for him.
Yeah,
Nikitin probably
he's on the card for the way in New York.
He'll probably be 3-0 by the time they do fight. And it's a good, at home fighting in Belfast. There's talk that it'll be outdoors. It'll be a nice occasion.
Absolutely, everyone will turn up and go, that's it.
Don't get me wrong, I'm going to watch it, poke the head off him, but maybe it should have happened this time last year. I think maybe Nikitin might be getting too big a payday for what was a blatant robbery. We're going back over old.
Nikitin got a car for that, didn't he?
Yeah,
had a concussion as well. He didn't turn up for the next fight.
No, yeah.
But we'll see where Michael's really. It will be a step down the Nikitin fight after this fight, I think. But if he wants to do it for closure, let him do it. If it's going to bug him, get it off his chest.
Say if he was thrown in for a world title fight in a year's time. Look, a year is a long time in boxing, but do you think he'd be ready for it? Say like Josh Warrington.
He'll never be thrown in because of who he is, the people he has around him now, and the power he has in boxing in terms of his management and his promoter and all that. So they'll build him now, hopefully, after this Nikitin fight and after this fight the weekend. And they'll have to. He's never going to be thrown in there. It'll be a fight. He'll have a chance of winning. He might be an underdog going into it when it does happen. Like, you look at the top guys, Valdez, Warrington. Those guys are tough. Like, they're in a different level to Michael at this the present stage in time. I'm sure he'll admit that himself. But he has the ability to get there. He just has to come through the battles in the ring and show the kind of pedigree he has and the caliber he has in a big fight against like Jason Cunningham was a solid opponent.
Yeah,
and he handled him pretty easy. It was only when he took risks, I thought, and trying things, the things that he'd been learning in the gym, that he kind of got caught one or two punches. But in general, he dominated Jason Cunningham, and he's like the best in England. Do you know the best?
Yeah.
Like European, former Commonwealth champion. So he's no mug. And you said about Michael being very hard on himself. Like, after that fight, he dominated Jason Cunningham. He was like, you think he lost the fight in the dressing room. You think he lost the fight, and it's only with experience. Like, I can remember being very young and I'd win fights, I'd be like, that was brutal, and I'd win the fight easy. It's only when you get older, you kind of, and maybe when you've tasted loss, that you really know what it's like, that any victory is a victory, so you should enjoy it. But he'll learn. He is a perfectionist, and I guess that's what's made him a great amateur, and hopefully will make him a great pro. That's
St. Patrick's Day. Paddy Barnes is on that card as well. He's fighting Oscar Mojica, coming off the defeat to Rosales. What does the future hold for Paddy Barnes?
He needs a win in this fight. Simple as, full stop. Back-to-back losses will be pretty devastating for his pro career at that age.
Read this guy. This guy's like 14-3 or something, isn't he? Yeah.
So he just needs to win. I think get it done.
He wants to fight Charlie Edwards. He fights next weekend.
Yeah, Jason Quigley's on that card. Yeah.
It's interesting because when Charlie was the one trying to get a fight, Paddy wouldn't have his name mentioned. Now Paddy's the one trying to get a fight, and Charlie's doing it to him. But bit of tit for tat. And that's a good story behind that.
Yeah.
And if Paddy can get a couple of more wins, I think that fight will be made, because at those lighter divisions, there's not many high world-class fighters out there, so I think that would be a good fight, and that would be a good seller as well in Belfast or in London.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's Paddy's route now. Try to stay busy, because he's not been the busiest. I know he's had a tough loss, and was that August of last year? So it's a long layoff, but get back, get busy, have a couple of fights, get sharp again, and then hopefully challenge Charlie Edwards. Yeah,
so the Keaton's on that card as well, and the day before, the 16th of March, Saturday, Gary Spike O'Sullivan and Niall Kennedy among those in action in Boston. Also, you've got Noel Murphy and John Joyce. So again, it goes into what we were saying, that Murphy's, in fairness, they recognise the value of putting on these Irish cards or Irish fighters around the Patrick's Day weekend, and they seem to be a success. Spike has obviously dropped down in weight since the loss to Lemieux. Is he and Packy's been in with us before. Packy Collins talking about Spike winning a world title. Do you think he has a world title in him?
He has a challenge in him.
Yeah.
At light middleweight, if he can maintain that weight, and he kind of had to drop out of the middleweight division.
Murderer's row up there, isn't it?
What?
The murderer's row there.
Yeah, well, and if you could make it light middle, why not try it? Why not make it anyway? Because you're giving up a huge advantage to these guys by fighting them if they're a lot bigger than you. And he is quite small, quite short for. I know he's kind of thick in his build, but he's quite short. So light middle would be a good avenue for him. But now he has to get busy as well, and he has to try and get a name. And the thing is with him, he is a name. So he might get someone trying to take a chance on him as an opponent, as he did with Antoine Douglas, and then upset them, and then that may lead to a big fight. But he has to get busy again, because kind of fading off a little bit after that loss, to Lemieux.
Okay, well that's Saturday night, and obviously on the same night, well, it'll be early Sunday morning. We're reckoning around 4 a.m. Irish time.
Is there any way to watch that card in Boston, here in Ireland?
Yeah, well, they're very good at streaming. Yeah. Murphy's are very good at
So that's an excellent fight, Noel Murphy against John Joyce.
Yeah.
Technically, they're probably not the best, but in terms of how they fight and the matchups and the styles, it could be a real bad.
Yeah, all Irish fights in America.
Yeah, it's a bit unusual. Murphy's based in New York, but and so it will be a crowd-pleasing fight.
I know, and we'll probably talk about it next week with the card coming up in the National Stadium at the end of the month. But the prospects of all Irish fights stateside, that's something that is going to appeal to all Irish boxers.
Yeah, and I think it'd be nice to see it happen more often.
Yeah,
it'd be nice to see it happen more often on a big stage. But yeah, I think it's a good fight. I think the two lads will lay it on the line.
Yeah.
But it makes sense to have Irish fighters in America, because there's a crowd there for it, and they're if there's not a crowd here for it, why not put them on with it? We've seen all this, Ronan was saying that the Philly fight will be Matchroom's biggest crowd in an event since they've been there. Mike Conlon will sell out the Garden, which he always does, and they'll have a good crowd in Boston too, so it makes sense. There's an appetite for Irish boxers in America, especially on the East Coast, so why not? Promoters just kind of click. It's always been a thing, but it seems to be, the last couple of years, it seems to be a real thing
off
now,
again, yeah.
Right, Errol Spence Jr., Mikey Garcia, we reckon about 4 a.m, ITV4. It's one worth staying up for, or whether you want to get up for it. The narrative seems to be, Errol Spence, he's just going to be too big for him.
The narrative being the truth, I think, in this particular. Yeah. No pun intended.
You knew what you were doing, so.
I didn't actually.
Fake news.
I was looking at the tail of the tape, and Spence is just too big for him. And the way Spence fights as well, he hooks to the body, pounds to the body. I just can't see Garcia being able to withhold it. And you think of Bernard Hopkins against Oscar De La Hoya, when De La Hoya went up to middleweight, and two equally skilled fighters, and if the attributes were the same, it could have gone either way, but just Hopkins was bigger, and De La Hoya couldn't take the power. And even again, you look at, I know Pacquiao beat Margarito, but he got caught with a left hook to the body, and he winced and went. He had to back down and bounce around the place for a little bit. He was like, there's no way he's catching me again down there, So I just think Spence will go to the body and probably stop him to the body.
Yeah, but Andy, is there a case to be made for Garcia? He's going to be the quicker fighter, that you know, he has to be very disciplined.
He's probably the better skilled.
Yeah.
Fundamentally, all round, he's probably the better boxer. He has a lot of attributes in terms of how he boxes. His movement, his rhythm, his feinting, and his punch selection, and he's also his boxing IQ. Those are the things you can see might give him an edge in the fight. With Spence, he's methodical, isn't he? He's he's not relentless. He's not foot pedal to the metal. It's not like foot on the gas going forward. But he's very methodical. He's very thought out. But he puts steady pressure on you.
Golovkin-esque almost.
Yeah,
it's not reckless, Margarito kind of just in your face.
It's not that kind of reckless, but he's kind of well thought out. He can box a bit, but he can fight too, and that's kind of what he prefers, is to come forward and throw hard punches. Like Garcia is going to have to do what he does, and that's take his time, bounce around the outside of the ring.
Yeah.
But one thing that Garcia has this ability to close the distance very quickly, you know, and he has that kind of, as I said, boxing IQ and instinct to know when you're not set. He'll move, he'll bop, and lull you into like kind of to when you're relaxing, and he'll spring on you. And he has a great ability to spring from a good distance. And he usually will throw away the lead hand, or he throws a feint left hook or a feint jab, and he comes through strong with his right hand. Like, he'd have to maintain that if he's got a chance to win. It's interesting because he's, like, with this fight he's been training, he's changed up his whole training program. He usually would be a traditional fighter where he'd run in the morning and train in the afternoon. His dad is a coach, his uncle is a former world champion, that's who trains with Roberto Garcia. But for this fight he's brought in Victor Conte. Do you know the guy from Balco? Balco kind of guy who's controversial. In the 90s, wasn't it? Like in California, all the sprinters got tested. He was done for bringing in steroids into sprinting, and like, you can't make it up. This guy's been rehabilitated through boxing now. Like, he gets done for drugs, and now he's the hottest guy in boxing. Like, you know, and so that's who he's training with. He has him on a program to build his strength. They're training in altitude domes and training with these kind of masks on that. Hypoxic masks that deprive you of oxygen. So whether that'll make a difference, we'll see. I do give him a shot. A lot of people give, like Matthew Macklin is called for Garcia to win.
Teddy Atlas was one that said, it was kind of looking like the likes of Freddie Roach. Everyone just thinks Spence will be too big for him, but Teddy Atlas actually said, no, I can see Garcia winning this.
Yeah. Like Robert Easter Jr., he was a big guy. I know that was 135. But he was a lot bigger, like, I don't know. So he can handle height and reach, Garcia. It's just, can he handle the power?
Yeah, I go along with everything you say there. Garcia is the better fighter, technically, faster, but just, I think Spence is just too big for him.
Okay, lads, before we go, just a quick mention. We touched on it, Jason Quigley. He's going to be fighting on that Charlie Edwards undercard. But I suppose the big thing from it is, it's his first fight outside the US. Okay, it's not in Ireland, but it's not that far away. It's in London. This is a great chance for him now to we get to watch him at a reasonable hour as well. Yeah,
and hopefully, if it's not on the TV, it'll be put on, the Facebook, Sky Sports, and people get the chance to see it. No opponent yet, but it'll be a nice little outing, and he needs to get busy again. You know, he's a guy who needs to get busy. He's had some good wins, Freddie Hernandez, and a couple of guys like that, Glenn Tapia, but needs to build some momentum now and press on. Any other stories you want to mention before we...
No, it's just great to have Triple G signed with DAZN. Yeah. I know we were talking about it the last time or a couple of weeks ago, but what he was doing, but it's great to have him back now. The middleweight division is incredible with himself, Canelo, Jacobs, Derevianchenko, Andrade, Quigley, you know, it just goes on and on and on. So I can see why Spike moved down to light middleweight. But I'm just excited to see what Triple G does when he's back.
Okay, lovely stuff. Andy, Simon, thanks a million. And we'll be back next week. We'll try and pick the bones of what has happened in Philadelphia, in Boston, in Texas, and obviously some really good fights coming up between now and the end of the month as well. Thanks for tuning in.